about 5.5 months old, so I've been breastfeeding about, that length of time. I always put my baby to the breast every time that I'm with him. I have an oversupply, I would say, so sometimes my breasts get too full before he's ready to eat, and so I need to pump to get some of that milk out to relieve myself a little bit. And also, I'm a working mom. I work outside of the home, so I also need to pump milk for my baby for when I'm away. And at some point during a lot of people's breastfeeding journey, I feel like they will be using a pump, whether it's, like I said, you're like me and you have to go back to work, whether you have an oversupply and you pump that extra milk to donate to a baby in need, or you just decide you don't want to put your baby to the breast at all and you decide to exclusively pump. I wanted to share my pumping tips because first time around, my body just did not respond very well to a pump. My first daughter, Amelia, she would not latch on for the life of her, so I had to exclusively pump, but it was very painful for me. I had very little milk output, only a few drops were coming out. So I wanted to share some of the things that I learned second time around after having my second baby for less pain during pumping sessions, or no pain at all, and more milk output. So here we go. I also use the Spectra S2 breast pump. I got it free through insurance originally. I think it was $200 something. And another thing before I get started is a lot of women, when they're pumping, they don't like that they can't use their hands and they're just kind of like sitting like this the whole, 10, 20, 30 minutes or however long you're pumping. That way you can get other things done while you pump. To get a pumping bra. This doesn't say what brand this is, but I will put a link down in the description below so you can purchase it if you're interested, but there's lots of other brands, so just type in Handsfree pumping bra and find one you like. But yeah, so you put it, here I'll show you. You take your bottle and your Flange, and there's like a little pocket, and you push it in, and you pull the other, there's another cover, there's like 2 layers that overlap. It looks really weird, it looks like this, but it allows you to pump hands-free. So, to get started with the video, first one is to make sure the flange size is correct. If you don't have the right size flange, it can definitely make pumping more painful and it can affect milk output. The sizes that I have are 24 millimeter, 26 millimeter, and 28 millimeter. It's talking about the circle on the inside where your nipple, would go through. So the best size for me is a 24 millimeter. It's supposed to have this size right there. You don't want your nipples to rub the insides of the flange, but likewise, you also don't want too much nipple to be sucked in, because either one of those will create a more painful pumping experience, and that's what I was experiencing first time around with my first, because I was using the other 2 sizes, the 26 and the 28 millimeter, and those sizes are too big, so too much nipple was being pulled in, and it was just hurting, and it was creating blocked milk ducts, and yeah, it just wasn't good. So make sure when you pump, it's the right size. Another tip for more milk output is these Duckbill valves. These need to be replaced. They need to be replaced about once every 3 months. If you try pumping without this and you just snap it in, you plug it up, and you try and pump like that, try that. You turn your breast pump on, nothing happens. That's where all the suction happens. In some ways you can tell that they're wearing out and need to be replaced. It should be closed like this. There should be no opening in there. If it was kind of like pinched out a little bit and it kind of like stayed open like that, and you can kind of tell that like it needs to be replaced. Another way I was able to tell that they needed to be replaced is just when I was pumping, I wasn't pumping near as much as I used to, and I was just like, what the heck? I mean, it was a dramatic difference. And I got these replaced and it was back up again. So my next tip has to do with the vacuum setting, and that has to do with the suction. And this really varies person to person. And like we've been talking about, pumping should not be painful. So whatever vacuum setting you have it on, it shouldn't be painful. So if it's painful, maybe take the vacuum setting down a few notches. What was going on with me is I thought how high the vacuum setting was meant how much milk would be removed, and that's not true. So first time around when I was pumping, I was putting it all the way at the highest setting, which is I think 12, and I was in excruciating pain, but I dealt with it because I just thought that that's what was best. But no, it shouldn't be painful, and if it's hurting when you pump, the vacuum setting might be too high. My suggestion is to start at a low setting, basically just start at the lowest and work your way up. My next tip is the speed setting. Let's zoom in here. I put mine on 70 to start off with. This is called the letdown mode, and I push that whenever I want to stimulate a letdown. And then once the milk starts flowing, and push it and get it to a 54. It's slower, the draw is longer, so it starts like pulling the milk out. And then when the milk starts slowing down, milk isn't really coming out in steady streams anymore, put it back up to the letdown mode. Like I said, just keep going back and forth during your pumping session. And then for the last 5 minutes of the pumping session, however long I'm doing it, take it all the way down to 38. And that gets it real slow. So what all that does is it's basically your pump trying to mimic what a baby would do. How when your baby first latches on, it's, you know, your baby's ready to go, they're hungry, they're sucking fast, sucking strong. When the milk actually starts flowing, then the baby gets, you know, starts slowing down, but they're sucking harder, really trying to get that milk out. And then when they're kind of like at the end of the feed, when they're full and, you know, they're not really wanting much milk and they're you know, they're relaxed, they start, you know, sucking slower, they're basically done. Another tip, probably the biggest one, is to encourage the milk flow. When you pump, it mainly just works your front milk ducts. There's milk ducts all over, you know, your breast. So to make sure it's really getting in there, getting all the milk removed, I like to massage. I'll take my thumbs and I'll just do it all around. I'll get all up in there, start from the back and bring it all the way to the front. Really, you know, push that milk out to the front, work all those milk ducts. Putting a warm compress on your breasts also helps. It helps with a milk letdown, it helps with blocked milk ducts. Power pumping is another one. This is good especially if you exclusively pump and you never put your baby to the breast. This stimulates more milk production because it's supposed to mimic the way a baby would cluster feed. So how it works is you pump for 20 minutes, rest for 10 minutes, pump for 10 minutes, rest for 10 minutes, pump for 10, and then you're done. So it's an hour-long session, but there are a few breaks in there, so you're not pumping the entire hour. But yeah, so that's also good to get the milk up, increase your milk supply. Another way to increase milk production is when there's no more milk coming out, I'll pump an extra 5 minutes to signal my body to make more milk. Breastfeeding is a supply and demand relationship. Your body's not gonna make more milk if there's not a demand for it. So that can also help if you have a low milk supply. Just think back, like, it's so crazy. First time around when I would pump, it was absolutely painful, excruciating, hardly any milk would come out. And then to now pumping this time around, it's like I can pump 18 ounces in one sitting. And also when you're putting your baby to the breast, you don't see the milk coming out. You don't see the volume. You don't see how much is coming out at a time, but you do with the pump. So don't be discouraged when you see more milk at some times and not a whole lot at others, because your supply fluctuates during the day. Milk supply is absolute, like, maximum in the middle of the night. The morning, I still produce a lot. Towards the afternoon and night is when it really slows down. So it's like the beginning of the day, there's so much, and then during the day it lessens and lessens and lessens. But yeah, so keep that in mind. Don't get discouraged. Don't think your milk supply is dropping. But yeah, so the only time you really ever need to be concerned about your milk supply is if your baby isn't gaining weight and they're not having enough wet and poopy diapers. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope any of these tips were helpful, even if it was just one or two of them. I'll see you guys in another video. Bye.